Good morning, nerds. It's me again. Sorry we got started so late this morning. I had to figure out things technologically wise. It went crazy. Sorry. I have the thing in the background. Super meta right now. Super meta. How is everybody doing? Hope your morning is going great. Once again, I have a cup of coffee. I hope you guys have coffee. Let me know what kind of coffee you drink every morning. If you're new to the show, every morning we discuss a topic in video games, a topic that's pressing in the news, for about a half hour. So not too long. I won't take up too much of your day, I promise. But today we're going to be talking about gun violence in video games. This is a tough topic because some people get really, really touchy about this. I get touchy about it. I mean, it's a big topic right now just because gun control is out of control in the United States. It's it's pretty crazy. I know some people are listening from the UK, so for those of you listening from the UK, I'm sure that our gun culture is probably a little odd to you because I know gun laws are much different there. Even people listening just around the country, depending on what state you live in, gun control is different, and what's depending on where you live. So it's a tough one. We're gonna try to talk about it with grace, and we're gonna be diplomatic about the whole situation, or at least I'm gonna try. Because if anyone knows anything about me, the reason why I do things like this, talk about Star Wars and have shows with this and that and the others, because I really, really enjoy telling other people what my opinion is. It's one of my favorite things to do. Hence, Good Morning Nerds. So once again, Good Morning Nerds. I'm your host, Chaswick Cleckley. I am here to talk to you about gun violence in video games. Does gun violence in our world, kids bringing guns to school, people committing mass shootings, is the catalyst video games? In the news, after we had a big shooting at school in Florida, a lot of you know about. I won't dive too much into that kind of stuff because you guys know about what's going on, and I really want to talk more about this, the idea of the video games, affecting gun violence. So, and like I said, most of you know what the news is when it comes to that. So, after the shooting, Trump said, "Oh, it's the violent video games they're making kids." Ugh. It's frustrating because I believe we already went through this, right, gamers? I'm getting up there in age, not too old, about to hit 28 in July, so I'm still young, but gaming is still young. So if you're around my age, then video games really hit their prime right when you could pick up a joystick. And so it's really interesting because I've been playing video games, like I said, since about the mid-90s to now. And I remember when we went through this whole situation when the ESRB ratings came out, right? So like I said, GTA really shook everything up and made everything really kind of different. And when these ESRB ratings, it made it so that way we understand, like, all right, rated M, 17, all this other stuff, E for everyone, T for teen, M for mature, all that fun stuff, right? So we've already been through this, right? And Trump also said we need a rating system for games, which is what I just described to you. So we already have that. Sometimes I feel like we live in the most... it's so hard to understand some days. I wake up and I think to myself, there's no way today's news can be crazier than yesterday's news. And then I read the news and I'm like, wow, I was 100% wrong about that. It's very sad. But that's besides the point. Either way, he said that violence in video games is what's leading to violence in our schools and violence on the streets. And this is why people want to use guns, is because we do it in video games. And so, of course, we want to do it in real life, right? So, we're going to talk a little bit about some factual stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about my opinion of stuff, because at the end of the day, we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna read out some facts, and we're gonna talk about my opinion on the matter. First, let's talk about my opinion on the matter, because this is my show, so I get to talk about what I think, but also I want to know what you guys think. So please send in some comments. Let me know what you think about violence in video games. Does one affect the other? Like I said, we're streaming to YouTube and Facebook, so I'm gonna do my best to keep up with the comments and join you in on the conversation. We are going to have a gentleman, James, join us through Skype at some point in time so we can talk about how he feels about it. But first, I'm going to let you know how I feel about it. So, to me, video games do one thing and one thing only, right? They're an escape. That's the whole point of video games, is that you're trying to get away from whatever you're going through, right? So, and the whole point of video games is to get out into, another universe. So I love fight games for the reason of I can't fight anyone. I'm not a fighter. But I love fight games because of the competition, because of how much you have to think, because of many reasons. But really, for me, it's my perfect escape. I get to pretend to be this really big buff character who beats people up and throws them against walls and this and that, whatever, because I'm not really an aggressive person. But, it's fun to do that. In Grand Theft Auto, right? Because that's the game that a lot of people use. So in GTA, I like to buy a lot of stuff and put on a lot of clothes and all that fun stuff. I spend a lot of money on stuff. If you remember yesterday's episode, I was wearing a flannel. I'm wearing another flannel, and probably tomorrow I'll be wearing a flannel, more than likely, because I really like flannels. And I'm very boring when it comes to the way I dress, because I'm not a materialistic person. But when I play Grand Theft Auto 5, I'm an extremely materialistic person. I spend so much money on stuff that I really don't need. And I have my outfits coordinated and all that other stuff, and it's a fantastic thing. And I don't do that in real life, right? Because I know that's frivolous and it's stupid and it's really dumb, right? To spend that much money on stuff that I don't need. I have 2 kids. I don't need, $500 pair of shoes. I don't need it. So that's what I mean. Video games are an escape. They're a way to get away. They're a way to shut down your reality for a little while and dive into a new one, which is super fun. That's why I think that this whole video games make people violent thing is just I'm never going to go into I'm never going to run out into the street, rip somebody out of their car, drive to an airport, steal an airplane, bomb a bunch of stuff, and then fly away. I'm never going to do that in real life. You know what I mean? So it's silly. I'm never going to do that in real life. So really, to me, one of the biggest catalysts, I think, for why this whole idea of video games make people more violent thing just doesn't work is because of the fact that they're an escape. That's the whole point of video games. They're meant to get away. So why would you bring that into the reality when you know you can just go and escape? I don't know. Not only that, but we know for a fact that video games are actually used as a form of therapy. Video games are used as a way to, and also let's just talk about the fact that America has an issue with gun violence, right? This isn't a worldwide problem because other countries have figured this out. They stopped giving their citizens AR-15s, right? So this is where we start to get into the touchy stuff, because people don't like to say hey, people shouldn't have AR-15s, because now they're oh, you're taking away my guns. But at the end of the day, do you really need an AR-15? I don't think so. If you think you need one, please discuss in the comments why you think you need one, because maybe you can convince me why you need an AR-15. I don't think you do. Just saying. But besides the point, this is an American problem. So video games are played now more than they've ever been played, right? They've been played now more on a constant basis than any time in history. And yet, and this is a worldwide thing, right? So if people are playing them more overseas, why isn't gun violence going up overseas? It doesn't make sense. Are Americans the only ones who are man, these games really want to make me shoot people? That doesn't make sense. It's kind of making it seem like you're putting it into in almost too simplistic a terms, I think. So, you know, it's an interesting thing. Like I said, there's a lot to talk about here. There's a lot of opinions on this. I'm gonna try to get one. Please feel free to join in the conversation. Like I said, please leave comments, subscribe. We have a lot to talk about. Do video games, do they make people more violent? We're gonna figure it out. We're going to try to at least talk about it. So I have a gentleman joining me. Let's see if I can get him on here without messing all of this stuff up. Let me go ahead really quickly and bring in a gentleman via Skype. So really fast, you're going to see a gigantic picture of my head. But yeah, so like I said, in the comments, let us know what you think. By the way, I'm Chaz Cleckley. If you are just joining us, I am your host of Good Morning Nerds. We're here every morning to talk about something nerdy. Today, our nerdy thing is video game gun violence. How is gun violence and video games relating? What's going on with this, and why is it even still a discussion? Why are we still even talking about this? It's 2018. We did this like literally 20 years ago. We already had to fight for our rights to play games. Why are we having to do it again? It's kind of silly, but we're in a very silly time, friends. We're in a very, 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 very silly time. At least, you know, that's how I think about it. I don't know. I need to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. We are on Facebook, and we are also on YouTube. So that's where you can find us. If you need to, you know, get at us, then that's where you can do it. So, yeah, we're going to take a call really quick. Let me see. I'm sorry. I got, okay. Hopefully all the audio picks up and everything's good. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Not too bad, and you?
I am fantastic, you know, having some coffee, enjoying the day. So we've already kind of discussed a little bit, you know, my thoughts on gun violence and how they relate to video games and kind of my opinion on it. But first, I'd like to get who you are. Can you introduce yourself?
My name is James Martin. I retired from the Marine Corps, actually. Did 15 years, and now I work flipping some video games every now and again.
Nice. That sounds like an awesome gig. I would love to do that. So old school retro video games, or more like newer stuff?
Newer stuff.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. So how long have you been a gamer? How long have you been playing?
I've been playing since like 87.
Okay. All right. So way back in the day, like Coleco days, Atari days, back in those days.
Old school Nintendo, and crying for my mom to buy me this $100 Nintendo with Mario and everything, and
yep.
Super Bowl, Tecmo Bowl, and such.
Oh man, Tecmo Bowl. You gotta love that one. Very good one. Very good one. So you've been playing for a long time, so you've seen games evolve over time. You know, you've seen kind of where maybe violent video games have started and then where we're at now. So so let's get started, like, kind of with your thoughts on this. Do you think that video games lead to gun violence? Do you think they correlate at all? Do you think they're not related? What are your thoughts?
I think the correlation between violence and video games, I think it opens up the imagination. I view video games the same way you do, as an escape. And the funny part is I even volunteer with a group called Stack Up, where we try to help veterans and active duty service members with video games, like actually help them with therapy through video games.
Okay, wow, that's really interesting.
And so the premise behind it is that everybody plays video games. It's just a matter of what you play. And, of course, everybody plays the violent games. And I remember, just like you do, I remember that the actual ratings came out for Mortal Kombat because it was so bloody and gory. And
yeah.
Johnny Cage could rip somebody's head off with the spinal cord dripping blood.
Yeah.
That everybody was like, whoa, wait a minute. And you're right, we've already been down this route. And I believe that if for anything, the violence in video games can open up your imagination to just how violent the world can be.
That's a great point.
I could say that because just like you said before, you know, there's no way on God's green earth I'm gonna spend, you know, $300,000 on a suit, go rip somebody out their car, go to a, you know, airport and to go hijack an airplane. It's not gonna happen.
Exactly. Right.
But, you know, the level of violence that is in video games has been disturbing over the course of years. Mortal Kombat being one of them. Well, the Call of Duty, when the very first mission, you walk through that airport.
Right.
Do mass shooting, like everybody.
Right. That's such an iconic moment in video games because of how intense that was. I was working at a video game store at the time and having to explain to parents when they bought that, listen, you can turn off, like there was the option to turn off that first mission. But we would have to explain to parents, listen, you're going to want to turn this off because it's pretty intense. And even playing it as, I was a teenager at the time, but even playing it then was intense. I remember like having to really like take a step back when I played and be like, oh man, this is rough. Like, I don't know if I can play through this.
Every time I think about that intro scene, it still shakes me.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, that was a bit much. Like, kudos to you for taking me out of my element.
Right.
Wow, that was powerful.
Right.
Medal of Honor had a problem when you had to play as a terrorist and actually blow up U.S. troops. I remember that.
Yeah.
They sell that video game on military installations.
Right.
Because of how bad that was. So I'm not going to say that violence correlates right with video games. It definitely opens up the imagination.
Right.
But you can also use it as a teaching tool, like because just like you said, there was an option to shut that game off.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I have parents come in and be like, "Oh, I want to get my kid this GTA 5," and I go, "Ma'am, are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure you want your 10 or 11-year-old to play this game?" And
yeah.
she's like, "Well, I don't know really what's it about." And I'm like, if you're okay with your son dealing with, you know, women who you pay for, you know, extracurricular activities,
right? Of course.
And slaughtering them in the middle of the streets, then you can go ahead and pick up this kid for your game, this game for your kid.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it, but if you want to spend your money, I'm not going to stop you.
Yeah.
And the lady, one who I think I've sold, I think there was only one parent that ever looked at me and said, "Would you let your kids play this?" I was like, I have two 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
And I won't let them play.
Exactly.
The game.
Yeah.
I think that's where, you know, when it comes to that violence in video games, if anybody ever wants to make that direct correlation, then you have to ask yourself, okay, how are these kids getting these games? Because like Far Cry just came out last night.
Exactly.
Came out today.
Yeah.
We know that's an M rating. I don't even have to think twice.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can guarantee you there's going to be kids that are playing that game. Fortnite doesn't have it's not a E for everybody.
Yeah.
There are 7-year-old kids streaming that on Twitch as we speak.
Exactly. So you bring up several fantastic points where it opens up a dialogue about several other issues that you have to start talking about when you talk about gun violence in video games, and that's why this is such an important topic, because like you said, now you're talking about, all right, first of all, how are kids getting games, right? Who buys them? Now, like if you look at the numbers, the majority of people who buy, like 10-year-olds can't buy video games. They don't have jobs, right? So we have to get it for the kid to play it, and then so first it starts with us understanding what we're doing as consumers. And that's a whole other, topic, but really we need to understand what we're buying, right? So if we're buying we don't always have somebody at the counter, like you or me, who will say to a parent, "Hey, listen, you probably don't want to buy this for your kid, because you literally torture a man in this game. So you don't want to get this for your child because it's way too much." And not only that, because some parents say, "Oh, well, the online mode, they're just going to go online." Okay, well then now you're putting your kid in a realm where they have to talk to adults like me. Now, if I'm a pretty nice guy, but when I'm playing video games, I'm not always the nicest guy. We can all say that, right? Like, we're not always the nicest people when we play video games because they're competitive by nature. That's the point of them. They're to get that competitive spirit out. And I'm the first one to tell you about your mama when I'm playing video games. That's just how I am. So you don't want that 10-year-old kid playing online with someone, because I might not know that that person on the other end of the microphone is only 10 years old. And a lot of kids go online and maybe they won't use their mic, but they're, you know, and then sometimes you have people who, they'll hear a kid and immediately get tilted and start attacking the kid because they won't, you know, if it's a competitive game, they don't want to lose and this. So you have to remember that, first off, the people that are playing these games are grown men, because that's who games are really made for. And there are games that are made for kids, and there are games that are made for 16 to 34-year-olds. That's the demographic, right? That's the market.
If you want your 10-year-old to play a video game where you want to play shooter, I have no problem recommending you Splatoon. Enjoy it. Love it.
Exactly.
I enjoy it. Don't have your 10-year-old son playing me in Fortnite or PUBG or Destiny, because what I'm going to say is volatile.
Exactly. And that's, and you know, and like you said, another great point you brought up is the fact that video games are, we've already been down this road as far as how they affect us, you know, mentally. Like you said, you work with an organization who uses video games as therapy, and like you said, if anything, it takes you out of your own element and shows you how violent like things can really get. Because like, you're right, when you play like MK9, like, you know, when you're ripping dudes, you know, faces out of their chest and all this other crazy stuff, it's, you know, I would never want to see that in real life. That's looks horrific. So, you know, and my thing is, we have to start talking, you know, we always want to distract and put it on a different subject, where really we need to start focusing more on how we do things socially and how we deal with mental health and how we deal with just, you know,
or just baseline parenting.
Baseline parenting.
Watching out for your kids. If you won't let your kids watch pornography,
yeah,
I let them watch all this blood and guts and gore. If you're scared to send your kids to the movies,
right,
because of the scary nature of the movie, then why on God's green earth did you buy them Dead by Daylight?
Exactly. I don't know. I think it's because it's almost like when I remember when I was a kid, Ren and Stimpy was on you know, television. Ren and Stimpy is not a kid's show. It is not for children. But it was a cartoon, and at the time there was this idea that if it's a cartoon and it's animated, it's for children.
It's fine, yeah.
And it was not okay for children, but it was put on a kids network because, you know, that was the idea. So it's almost like that same idea now with video games, where if it's a game, it must be for kids, right? My kid is going to want to play this. But at the end of the day, you really should be focusing more on, like you said, reading. That rating system came out ages ago for a reason, so that way you can be aware of what you're buying for your kid. If your kid is not a teen and it says T for teen, and then you're complaining that there's stuff in the games that's not for them, well, you didn't pay attention to the rating. You know, like you said, you won't take your kid to see a rated M movie, but why would you let them play a rated M game? You know, so, you know, it's really interesting. But
let's go with the current game on that one. Look, Call of Duty World War II.
Yeah.
I don't know how many Facebook posts I saw with the parent who just happened to walk in the room and they saw their child playing, and the picture of those two guys hanging in the back.
Yep.
And I was like, and their parents that were outraged, and I'm like, okay, hold on. Did you not read, one, the rating on that game? Because first off, in some of these places, we are not legally able to sell you a game if you're underneath the age of. So your parent had to buy it for you. You conned your parent into it. Now your parent sees what the game's actually there.
Right.
And I had to argue with family that goes, hey, they actually hung people during World War II. They actually did that. So the troops that walked through those woods during that time frame would actually see people hanging from trees because the Nazis wanted to kill them in such a form of fashion.
Right.
It's not outside the realm of what actually happened, but now you're shocked, which means you didn't know nothing about the game, so why'd you buy it from in the first place?
Exactly. That's perfect. That's 100%. I mean, that's a great point. That's exactly my thoughts and feelings. Like I said, guys, if you feel differently about this, let me know in the comments. Let us know on Facebook or on YouTube. That's where we're streaming through. Thank you so much for joining me. You brought up a lot of great points. I really appreciate it. If you don't mind, possibly I'll contact you in a little bit, but if you could send me possibly a link for that organization, that you work with, so I could possibly get some more information on that, so we can learn a little bit more, and we can kind of share a little bit more of what you guys do. That would be awesome.
Not a problem. I can do that.
All right. Yeah, no problem. You have a great day, James. We appreciate you joining me. I hope you have a good one.
All right, you too.
Bye. So, wow, a lot of great points brought up. I'm excited, guys. I'm super excited because this is what I really wanted to do. Get into it with you guys about what's going on. So many great points just got brought up. I think that to dissect all that, we really should break it down to this, right? It comes down to us controlling what we take in and what we put out. It comes down to us really making a conscious decision to say, all right, if I put a game in front of my child, I'm going to make sure that it's something that's appropriate for them. And we have to start rethinking what's appropriate for our children, because, you know, if we really think that gun violence and video game violence are directly correlated and that these kids are bringing, then why are we letting them see this? But on the same vein, you know, we also made the point during that video games are an escape, and they're a way to show us things in a different realm. Like he said, in the world, like James made up a great point, and I really appreciate him for coming in and bringing in that perspective. Like he said, he's a vet. He's been playing video games for a long time. Not only is he a veteran gamer, he's a veteran. So we appreciate your service, and thank you so much, James. Really appreciate you coming on and talking with us. That was such a revelation to be able to get a different perspective on it. But like I said, so in the background, you'll notice, guys, I've had this article up, and we're going to talk about this real quick because we're running low on time, and I don't want to take up too much of your day. Like I said, we just do this for about a half hour. I don't want to take up too much of your time. So the evidence does not support the claim, scholars say. We're talking about here, do video games lead to mass shootings, researchers say. I'm on the New York Times website right now. You can find this on the New York Times website. I'm going down to this part. If you want to read through, you can. I just want to talk about this part here. In the 2005 essay for PBS, Henry Jenkins, a professor at the University of Southern California, said the juvenile crime in the United States was at a 30-year low, even though large numbers of young people play video games, right? So when video games were selling at their peak, crime among people who play video games was at its lowest. That's a fantastic point to make, right? Researchers find that people serving time for violent crimes typically consume less media before committing their crimes than the average person in the general population. So people who are committing these crimes don't even play video games before they commit the crimes. So there you go. You have a disconnect right there, right? So it seems like this is more of just a way to point fingers. We do a lot of that in today's world, don't we? We point a lot of fingers. It's your fault, though. But it's your fault. No, it's your fault. And it seems like we can't get much done because we're so busy pointing fingers at each other. I don't know. Like I said, this is a tough topic because it's hard to outrightly say things because I don't want to ruffle too many feathers, but this is my show. And I am so obviously opinionated about so many things. And let's be 100% real about it. The person that is at the helm is not doing a very good job at their job. And they're using divisiveness and they're using the separation. I mean, divide and conquer is a war tactic from ages ago. You know, that's the way to do it. And that's what they're using. And they do things like this to confuse us, right? And make us think it's one thing. Look over here and not over here. It's very frustrating because at the video games are, if anything, the saving grace of today's world, right? If it wasn't for video games, like say we took away video games, and I'm talking about all video games, right? Including your, mobile phone games. Because, see, some people think I'm not a gamer, right? But then they'll go play freaking Bejeweled on their phone for 8 hours straight. And they swear they're not a gamer. You're a gamer. You play video games, right? Everyone plays video games. Facebook is a video game, right? Look at the way Facebook operates. You put in, you get out. That's a video game. So we all play games. Say you took video games out of the world. How sad would everything be? right? There's no escape anymore. There's no way to connect with your friends and do things as a community, right? Think about some of the most intense moments you've had in gaming when you and your buddies set up the scene perfectly and you executed the plan perfectly, and then you win the match or the round or what have you in the fashion that you wanted to, and you're up around your house screaming like a freaking champion because everything went so well, right? That's gaming. Those are some of the most, not even that, but think about some of the most beautiful stories you've experienced while playing video games. Kingdom Hearts is my favorite game of all time. I will argue with anyone about their favorite game and tell you that Kingdom Hearts is better than it. I'm just kidding. I'm sure your favorite game is fantastic, but Kingdom Hearts is better. And you know, Kingdom Hearts is such a beautiful, wonderful story about friendship and challenges and growing and changing, and it's amazing, right? And so if those stories weren't in the world, when I was going through some of the hardest parts in my life, right, when I was a teenager and all that, I was playing Kingdom Hearts and learning these lessons about friendship and then taking them into my own life. If I didn't have those, how would I have dealt with those times? All I'm saying is we really need to think more about how we consume media, and we really need to think more about the core issues of problems. We focus so much on the residual, like, effects of the actual problem. Like, we need to focus more on the issue, and video games aren't the problem. But you can keep trying. You can keep trying to blame us gamers for everything, but we're still going to be awesome at the end of the day. Thank you for joining. Good morning, nerds. Good morning, nerds. I hope you had a wonderful conversation with us. If you have anything else to say on this topic, please leave a message or a comment or a something underneath. I hope that everything looks fantastic out there. We're trying to get everything back up to a good speed as far as, you know, making sure that things look nice and things sound good, and, you know, the technology looks good, and it's all, you know, it's a lot of work. But we're trying. We're trying our hardest. We're grinding. We're grinding. We're small, right? We're tiny. If you look at our numbers, we're small. We're a small thing. We're about to hit 800 on YouTube. So thank you everyone who is contributing to that. We really appreciate it. Like, subscribe to our channel. Cube Gamers. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter. Let us know how you're doing, what you're thinking about. What do you want to talk about? Tomorrow's Wednesday, so it's Indie Day. We're going to pick an indie developer and talk about what's going on with them. We're going to talk about a game that you guys probably haven't seen before, because I love to go into like the little niches and corners of the galaxy and find these little indie games that are just so fantastic. So tomorrow, if you're a guy who is developing games or you enjoy watching how games develop from small to big, please join us tomorrow, because tomorrow's Indie Day, Wednesday. Also, tomorrow is Wednesday, so you know what tomorrow means. It means Talking Sith, guys. So if you guys are Star Wars fans, please join us for Talking Sith. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, my time, because I live in CT, Connecticut. If you're from Connecticut, make sure you drop a line, because I love this place. Some people hate it, but I really like it. It's expensive, though. Don't move here. Don't move here. But, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Today we talked about gun violence. Thank you, James Martin, for joining me. I can't even... People are joining in on the show. They're talking with me. It's just small things, right? Small things. Tomorrow we'll be here with Indie Day, and then we'll have Talking Sith later in the day. You can join me later on for that with Adam Montoya, my boy. I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you enjoy it. It's a wonderful one. Hopefully I will see you around if you're from my area. Hopefully I'll hear from you on Facebook or Instagram. I'm Chaswick Elliott Cleckley, your host, and I hope you guys have a good one. See you later.